Hi, in this video we're going to look at why you should use EPS, the tool that's within MRDCL, to improve your productivity. There's no files in this video, there's no MRDCL script. We're just going to look at some PowerPoint presentation slides so that you can think and understand about EPS. So what is EPS? Well, it stands for Excel Productivity Scripting. It's a tool that people use for building templates that colleagues can share. Now what that means is if there's something you do on many projects or a lot of times within the same project, you can build a template with the help of Excel so that everything is controlled from Excel rather than from script. So you write some script that will read an Excel workbook in a particular format, and then that script will be there forevermore and can be used from project to project by all the team. So it's a way of building a template so that you can do something that's repetitive in the same way each time, and also make it easy for people to use so that complex tasks or laborious tasks become quite easy. So it pulls together the power of the scripting language that's within MRDCL and all the functionality you've got in Excel. So you can actually set up forms or controls in Excel that tell MRDCL what to do. So why should you use EPS? Well, there's some very good reasons for using EPS. One of those is quite simply to reduce costs. It means that you can do things much more quickly, and you can also have less skilled staff doing the work. And it also means that work can be shared amongst teams. So it means that the senior people can be doing the more difficult work, while junior people can use EPS templates to mark what things are required in a particular project. Let's have an example of that. Well, let's say you've got something like a rating scale on a questionnaire, which is a typical example. You may have decided in your EPS template that you want to have perhaps 10 different types of tables from a rating scale. That might be a mean score summary, each of the statements in a rating scale side by side, or perhaps some other method. If those are then available on a worksheet for someone to just mark off which ones are wanted, that can be done by someone quite junior. So it's a way here of organising projects in a better way and reducing the staff time that's needed to implement particular things, whether it be reading data, producing tables, or calculating data in some way. And what's important is that it'll reduce the errors that you make and save staff time in that way as well. It means that teams can work in the same way, which is, I think, very important. It does improve productivity when people work in the same way. It means that people can share projects very easily. And so if somebody's doing a particular project of a particular type, they can just share that amongst colleagues because they'll know the way that their colleagues have handled that project because it's all being done within a template. It really does avoid reinventing the wheel, which is something that I think probably too many people do in scripting languages. In other scripting languages, it's very common to be actually just implementing the same code for the same types of questions, but with perhaps slight textual changes or data location changes. So we really do avoid reinventing the wheel when you use EPS within MRDCL. And another key thing that managers and business owners might want to consider is that when there's illness or staff leave or change roles, it makes it much easier to understand a project. I know when we get support queries, if a project has used EPS, it's much easier to see what someone's done. Whereas if they've written the whole thing in new script every time they write the project or a project, it becomes quite difficult sometimes to trail through and find out what they've done. So here's some examples of where you'll be able to use EPS. It's not by any means an exhaustive list. So handling open-ended questions is a very good way of telling MRDCL what code lists are, for example. So you could have a worksheet that listed all the open-ended questions, had the code lists for each question in a spreadsheet so that MRDCL could automatically make use of EPS to read each worksheet with its labels. It means that the coders are probably doing their work they should be doing, and all that the person's doing in the data processing team is just setting a reference to a workbook and a worksheet within that workbook. You can use EPS for entering data corrections and who's made those data corrections, for example. So rather than physically changing data, we actually recommend that you put data corrections inside an Excel worksheet, and then you know what corrections have been made to your data. You have an audit trail, and indeed perhaps who's made them if you want to recall that information too. So you can always go back and see what's happened to data since it was originally collected. You can produce tables from rating scales, as I described just now, and indeed some people specify all their tables using an EPS template in Excel. So they just mark in different columns in the Excel spreadsheet what the rows, the columns are, the filters are, what format options they want, what particular types of tables they want, and they can even store in there any notes, so that then an MRDCL script reads that EPS template and automatically generates all the tables for you. And if there's one or two tables perhaps that are particularly complex and need an expert to write, it's very easy to call a piece of code that does those particular tables in a special file to handle those particular complex tables. It's also good for handling things like subtotals. So if you want to have a series of codes to make a subtotal, you could put that into a spreadsheet. So you could say that codes 1, 3 and 5 need to be made into a subtotal. Codes 2, 4 and 6 need to make another subtotal. It's a very good tool for handling tracking studies. Tracking studies are notorious for being difficult to handle. Not perhaps because they're conceptually very difficult, because often clients want to change the questionnaire from quarter to quarter or wave to wave, however frequently the survey is taking place. And as a result of that, someone's got to actually code what questions are present at what wave, or perhaps even the data locations may change from wave to wave. So you've got to tell MRDCL perhaps that question 1 is in field 20 at the first wave, but in field 25 at the second, and field 50 at the third wave. Or perhaps it's not in the fourth wave at all, and you need some way of noting that so that tables are automatically filtered. So tracking study questionnaires can be handled very well using EPS. And you can handle any questionnaire differences by some sort of spreadsheet method. Applying text and using brand lists, that's another good way. You can have a brand list that sits in a spreadsheet, which perhaps the client updates for you, and just feed that in, and automatically the script will automatically update and produce the new brand list. In fact, anything you commonly do in any project or anything that's laborious to do will work well using EPS. So who should use EPS? Well, that's in the next video. There's another video that talks about who should use EPS. Because there's two types of users within EPS. There's the people that develop the template, and there's the people that actually use it. And these are often different people, although they may be, in case the developer, somebody who uses their own template. But not everybody needs to learn EPS, just the people who develop it know how to implement EPS. Obviously everybody else has to know how you actually use these templates to improve their productivity and efficiency. As I say, that's in the next video. Thank you.